The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our ServiceNow series, where we interview the best and brightest of the industry to share their story, advice, and views on the exciting world of ServiceNow and digital transformation.
Hi everybody, it's Mark Kelly here, Chief Customer Officer and co-founder of Alldus. As part of our ServiceNow podcast series, I'm very, very happy to welcome Matt Farahmand. Matt is a practice manager at Thirdera. Matt, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you, Mark. I'm glad to be here.
Matt, before we jump into your role in Thirdera, tell me how you came into the world of ServiceNow.
Sure. Yeah. So my journey has started very early on with ServiceNow. I've been involved in ServiceNow since 2008, back in the days when it was much a smaller company, more intimate relationship with founders and the other developers that they were working on the platform. But journey continued on. I enjoyed what the platform has to offer and capabilities, and I just stayed on and continued. Changed courses, and as when I went on, I became more interested in building solutions and also developing offerings for what can be done and show the art of the possible within the platforms rather than just developing and configuring applications. And here I am today. It's been a long journey. Enjoy what I do here at Thirdera, leading our customer workflow practice and all the industry solution that falls under the customer workflow, like technology, public sectors, telecommunications, and the other ones that we have heavily invested in.
Brilliant. And today we're talking about public sector and CitizenKey. For people that don't necessarily know the importance of this and some of the work that you're doing, there's some fantastic case studies now coming out to market. Could you give us a little bit of an overview about that and how you're helping people in the public sector succeed?
Absolutely. Yeah, so one thing what we have noticed as we've been working with our public sector customers, a challenge that they're facing in the in that world doesn't, regardless of the size of the organization. It could be a small township, or it could be a statewide or a federal level. Regardless of the size, and they have had a challenge to upgrade and get away from the legacy systems, being able to provide the top of the line multi-channel supports to their constituents and citizens. And part of that push coming from the constituent citizen themselves. They're very accustomed to the consumer grade services they get from the business world, and when it comes to the government services, unfortunately, the experience is not the same. So that's where the CitizenKey was born, right? We helped our public sector customers transform and get to a modern service offerings platforms where they can offer the same grade of the consumer grade quality services to their constituents, give them that multi-channel supports that everyone desire and prefers. I might be a phone person, you might be enjoying emails or online. Doesn't matter what that is, right? The important factor is being able to provide that multi-channel supports to your constituents.
So for the novices listening in, can you share some examples such as, renewal for a driving license, or you want to report a pothole within the street?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. So let's talk about a couple of those use cases, right? We keep talking about CitizenKey. Before let me expand on the CitizenKey a little bit. So I talked about consumer grade quality services offering and multi-channel, but let's expand on that, right? So CitizenKey, it's a platform for your public sector digitalization. You can think of it as a digital transformation. What does that mean? So traditionally in the public sector, most systems are siloed from one another. Think of a customer center, call center that provides services to their citizen statewide within a state in the U.S. You usually have the call centers and the agents that take the calls, and then they have to share, take that information and put it in a system that, if there is any system, right, that handles the cases and the customer issues. And then in order for them to put that information in, they also have to gather information from other sources, capturing the constituents, the citizen information, being able, sometimes when they have to go through multiple type of service, and we will dive into those in a few moments, they have to gather information from the other sources and systems in order to be able to troubleshoot that issues. You can see how time-consuming and challenging that can become, tiresome, right? The agent gets frustrated. The constituent citizen like you and I will get frustrated because it takes forever to get that response from them. It's not their fault. It's just that that the traditional systems in place are not built for today's modern technology, right? So that's what CitizenKey solves. Removing those silos, bringing the system information into one central location for the both constituents and also for the agents that are working with the constituents, removing that headaches and challenge, having all the information in one place. So how do we do that? Let's walk through that one example. Driver license, imagine that, right? In some states, they have a great online website that you can go find your information about renewing your driver license or getting a new driver license. Some don't. That you have to use email or phone. But for most of them, even if there is a website, you usually end up filling out the PDF form, submitting that, which ends up emailing that to another systems that they have to manually go decipher that and input that information into that system. On top of all of this, a lot of times, because of the challenges that are in the system, you have to walk into a driver license office, grab a ticket, wait for your time to arrive, and then go and talk to an agent to get the information put in and be able to proceed with that process. But imagine if you had CitizenKey as part of your organization. You could decide what type of services we are offering related to the driver license. Is it renewal? Is it brand new? And within each one of those, what is it that we offer to the different type of constituents? Let's say, the type of driver license for the age of 18 to 21 is different than 21 and above, right? You could segregate that easily through the CitizenKey and the power of ServiceNow public sector digital services. Today, there is no system that offers that level of granularity and the configuration. And we are not talking about spending weeks and months. You're talking about spending hours to put those offerings together, publish that to your website, and have it available to your constituents. And then you're talking about digital forms, right? They go in, find the related services, they fill out that as soon as you submit this request, it transitions to a case with all the relevant information that the agents needs to have. You capture the constituents information. You can also, because the system is so smart, you can route it to the right agent. So if you are part of the DMV, that's somebody in the DMV will receive that. And then all the other informations that that agent needs to have is all embedded within one platform. Because of the power of the integration, we can bring and remove those silos together. So you can see how powerful this can become, how easy it will make the life of the constituents and also the organization, the public sector organization, and their employees as well, which is their satisfaction means happy customer, happy constituents.
And the great thing about this example is we're all constituents. We all want the government and public sector services to be of the highest quality because we're all utilizing using them. So when you look at it and you're kind of thinking about maybe we're at 1980s or 1990s technology, many public sector organizations have stayed behind the technology's transformation. Tell us about how CitizenKey can help evolve this.
Absolutely. So I touched on this on and off as we were going through this conversation, right? But I'm going to, you know, dive into this a little bit further. Uh, so some public agencies, they have taken on the challenge to go through that digital transformation and technology transformation. What they have learned was that it is very difficult and time consuming. Being able to have a platform uh, that offers all the capabilities we talked so far and many more that I'm going to touch on it's a very difficult task, especially when you're talking about a sector of the public sector that they have stayed behind in terms of technology and haven't upgraded their systems. Uh, so usually what it ends up to be for those that took on the challenge and went through that journey, they learned that it takes them several months, sometimes longer, to go through that transformation and being able to get to the modern technology. CitizenKey removes all of those obstacles. We have this is pre-built, pre-configured with all the necessary requirements and configuration for the public sector. So you don't have to start thinking about, how do we design the systems? What are the different level of the configuration we need to have? We bring that to the table for you to speed up your delivery and implementation. So that's number one. That's challenge removing the obstacles about timelines and the lengthy and complex end-to-end process and integrations. But on top of that, right, we talked about providing that omni-channel support, right? What does that mean? That means that through CitizenKey, the public sector organization, they will get a wonderful, beautiful portal, support portal that the constituents that can interact with them. That also means that if they prefer to do the chat, they can. It's available. If they want to pick up the phone and make phone calls, that's also available. If they prefer to get updates and receive informations related to their issues or emergencies that are going on through SMS, that's also offered, right? So you can see how there's different channels of supports going to come through with the CitizenKey. Then on top of that, we get a lot of, they get a lot of other capabilities. We talked about that swirl share concept where the taking the calls and creating the cases where in two separate systems no longer need to be through the CitizenKey, right? As soon as regardless of what channel is, the cases get created automatically, the customer issues get created automatically in the system, and then your agents can spend their time to troubleshoot what needs to be troubleshooted. It comes with a very robust automation engine. How does that help you? That means that rather than you will have somebody to go through and decipher the cases and decide what type of issue this is, you can categorize this automatically. You can assign them automatically based on the different criteria. It could be a skill sets, could be the location of the agent, could be other factors, right? We talked about the silos and separated systems. Through CitizenKey, we have a very robust and intelligent integration engine in place that can integrate your customer service management with the other system as needed. I'll give you an example, right? Let's get back to the pothole issues, right? So if the constituent comes to the portal through CitizenKey, find the pothole related offer service and submit that issues, providing all the information that you need. Let's say, a lot of times, the current system, they cannot capture all the details, right? So you need to know the streets, you need to know the location of the pothole. Through CitizenKey and ServiceNow Public Sector Digital Services, you can, capture all that necessary information at the first interaction with your constituent. So that's one obstacle removed. But once that comes in, right, as you get that automatically transferred and assigned to an agent that is trained for handling potholes, there are a couple of things that can happen here through CitizenKey that offers additional capabilities that in trying to build this on your own is going to be very time consuming. A lot of times you have to be able to have related information as an agent to know how to troubleshoot some things. in many part of the many organization, it is called KCS, knowledge centric management methodology. That CitizenKey also offers you that. So as those case comes in, because we were able to categorize them, we were able to route them, you can provide the relevant information to your agents that this is how you go through troubleshooting the potholes related issues. And then now that we've discovered that, and now I have the information as an agent to know how to troubleshoot this, I can see that one of these steps, as once I identify that has all the necessary information, I have to communicate this with my field services, so they can go and inspect that. This is where the power of the automation engine that the integration engine that I was talking to you comes handy, which is tradition is going to be very difficult. You're going to have to spend several months to just build or connect those systems together. Right. So, this is easily can be transferred to the field agents. They get that information so they can go and inspect it. As they inspect that and provide updates, your case automatically gets updated with the relevant information that you can either update your constituents or other departments as necessary. So, that's CitizenKey in a nutshell. There's a lot more we can talk about, but I don't want to bore your audience.
Yeah, Matt, you've been really prescriptive and very detailed, and thank you very much for that. Tell me a little bit about timelines. So if we look at, how quickly can we start to see improved services from our municipalities, a public sector organization, and when can we start to expect improved service efficiency?
Sure. Yeah. So obviously, every use case is different, right? Depends on the size of your organization. It also depends on, what type of services do you offer to your constituents. But typically, what we have seen so far, and working with our public sector organization to ease this process and get them up and running so they can see value and an outcome very quickly, we have broken out our offerings into two phases. To help the public sector organization get up and running. Phase one, it's where we focus on getting the foundational and the transformation to the digital transformation. This phase one is everything we talked about so far, right? Getting your primary services published, getting your case management together, getting your knowledge management together, your SLAs, your surveys, all the necessary factors that you need to be operational and be able to provide services to your constituents. Phase two is where, and that phase one usually typically, depending on the size of your organization, can be as quick as 2 months up to a few months, depending on your use cases and the size of your organization. And then we get into the phase two. Phase two is where we emphasize in automation and intelligence, bring in some AI technology to assist the both constituents and agents at the same time, expanding integration with the other systems so you will be very fluent in your operation day to day without needing to connect to the different systems. And the phase two usually also depends on the size, can go somewhere from a couple of months to a few months as needed.
When actually you take into consideration the improvement, one thing I didn't actually ask you is about the Net Promoter Score. I'm guessing there's going to be a positive bump in that.
Absolutely, right. Yeah, so we've been talking about what challenges exist in today's systems, and because of those challenges, you usually end up getting low satisfactions from your constituents because no one expects to for a pothole report issues. It takes 2 weeks for somebody to acknowledge that yes, we have identified this and we're going to look into it. So when you change that methodology and bring it into the CitizenKey, where things happen very quickly, efficiently, that has a very direct effects on the CSAT and an NPS. We have seen our different public sector organization, they have a ramp up of 70 to 80% improvements in those areas, just because the flexibility, the visibility, right? A lot of times we are accustomed in the consumer world that, hey, when I'm reporting something, I get a feedback, I get acknowledgement that we have received your information and we are on top of it, right? That's what CitizenKey does for the constituents in the public sector. You get that acknowledgement, that communication channel is open, that automatically has an positive effects on the NPS and CSAT.
I think that's so important, is to get that acknowledgement. Just that small little note to say, we've taken into consideration what you've said, we will respond, 24 hours, 40 hours, 2 weeks, whatever it might be, but you actually get that acknowledgement and people just feel like, okay, I'm being listened to. I get you what you're saying, and we've taken a note of it. Tell us a little bit more about AI. Matt, you kind of touched on it a little bit, and kind of a virtual agent. Tell us a little bit more there.
Absolutely. So, the powerful thing about the CitizenKey and the supports that you get through the ServiceNow platform is you get to take advantage of a number of different pre-built engines that building those traditionally is going to be very difficult and also expensive. So CitizenKey also offers for those organizations that are interested, is not a mandatory factors, but that they are interested and they want to get into more advanced features. They can have automation engines, AI engines, and machine learning engines. What does those do for you? They bring a number of advantages and capabilities and features that satisfy your constituents and make the life of your agents easier. The AI engine will be able to help virtual agents, right? So that means that you can provide 24/7 hours supports to your constituents. So for a lot of simple issues or questions that you may have, that's where the virtual agents can come in handy to provide those answers and details to your constituents. And because we are talking about in one platform that removes the silos and brings everything together, you're talking about the virtual agents that is very intelligent and very knowledgeable about the information. So if you're talking to the virtual agents through CitizenKey and inquiring about a case that you have open or issues that you have reported, that exactly knows who you are and what that issue is, rather than trying to just give you a very generic information that we see usually in those sectors, right? And then on top of that, there's a lot of simple issues can be handled through virtual agents and AI that typically, in traditional way, you have to open a case for an agent to go through, do that. So those are some of the advantages that it comes with the AIs and virtual agents. On top of that, I talked about machine learning. So machine learning is where you can take advantage of some of the features I touched on earlier on: automatic assignments, automatic categorization. Because we are talking about a platform that has all the different points connected to one another, you can intelligently, the machine learning can learn from that and help your agents throughout the process, right? Put the relevant information in front of their hands as they go through troubleshooting the usual cases and the other service-related cases.
Matt, you've given a really comprehensive overview about some of the challenges within the public sector and how CitizenKey is helping to solve them and really kind of digitize the process. And as as members of the community, it's great to see the possibilities of this implementation and how quickly it can have a positive impact as well. Matt Farahmand, Practice Manager at Thirdera, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.